Right, 6:30.
Started.
Call me. I have to. The meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Are there any revisions to the agenda?
Nope.
No. Great. We'll move to the consent agenda. Any questions on the consent agenda? Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I second vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll move on to the informational presentation, starting with our student rep and singular.
Yes, great.
We do have another representative from JMS coming next month. So yeah, we just picked up today.
Yes, so welcome. Thanks for being here. And I understand that there's a concert that's happening in a little bit, so we'll make sure that you get out of here
Thank you.
as soon as you're done sharing. So I just want to mention really quick that Ada and her family have moved. They're actually on their way right now. And so probably near Boise. So we're gonna miss her and the Menaces. They've been really amazing family and have done a lot for the school district. So we appreciate them and this is excited for their move. So, and the other students, we'll follow up with them later, but you're here.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad you're here. Appreciate you being here. And so I had asked some questions that really came from the board. And it sounds like you've got some responses.
Yeah. So the standardized testing one is, I just wanted to clarify, that's like SBAC,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Okay. That's what I thought. I wanted to make sure it was like fast bridge or anything. So I actually talked to a few of my friends, like kids around the school. We don't have a ton of complaints about it other than just having to do the test itself. But one thing that like positives I noticed that teachers that's really helpful is how our schedule changes. We only have one test per week. So it's just our classes turn to 2-hour blocks. And some days you don't even have a test. Like it's nice. It's really well spaced out. So we're given good amounts of time to do the test, but not the anxiety that's like, oh, I'm going from this class, I have it next period too. It's like gives you that time. And then teachers, I feel like, especially in 8th grade, because we have so many read science tests, which we've used the last 3 years, we've just started to review science, like what we've learned for the last 3 years, just so we have it all like kind of ready for the SBAC. And then same with math and ELA, we've just started to that review time, just to prepare for that. For the student engagement ideas for how to, I don't have a ton of ideas on that because we have a lot of like for ASB, we do assemblies, dances. Those are kind of our outreach, our spirit days, those sorts of things. And I have noticed like assembly days, those sorts of things. That's when we see a lot more kids come to school almost. Like if kids, because shorter class periods, and then you also have like you're doing games, you get to fun. It's like I think assemblies are probably the most like I really enjoy those, and most of our student body does.
That's because you just want to sing positive fight song. Keeping fights on Mr. Cook, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and then in terms of engagement in classrooms, I kind of wanted to touch on that. I've seen a lot of shift in the last few years how teachers have started to do less like just sitting down doing paperwork to I know in the 7th grade they're trying this new style of kind of learning for math. It's like you break up into different groups every day and then you go to different whiteboards and it's kind of more like you get that fun of like every day you get a new group every day. It's like a different kind of style. I don't know. The change is more fun. But yeah.
So you haven't experienced that in your math class yet?
No, but I do think they're going to start it next year.
Yeah.
Are you an algebra?
Yeah, that's partly why. Yeah.
Hey, do you have any questions?
That was the 8th grade math meeting going because you're in algebra, right? So then you have to go back and re-review 8th grade for the SBAC, right?
It's good. I don't know. It's kind of a nice break from algebra, but yeah.
So I have a question for you about the standardized testing. Do you have any idea, or do your teachers talk about like what the purpose is?
Not really. I mean, I've gathered like how it's kind of just to what I've always been told is that it's more just to see how our education system is like in the state rather than just like the individual student. But a lot of our teachers also use it just to see like our growth. Like last year, our ELA teachers were like, okay, you did this, here's your goal.
Yes.
Kind of doing that.
Yep. And did you find that helpful?
Yes and no. I don't know. It kind of the goal was like this is just my I always like this is gonna sound weird, but like I always have tried to kind of do better. I enjoy learning. And so I already always had that kind of like personal goal. So for me it wasn't much of a change, but I think a lot of students in my grade appreciated it.
Got it. I just would have been wondering if we could do a better job of communicating why the smarter balance is in place.
I think so.
And why we want to set goals, not only for you individually, but also the district, like you said, that it's one of the metrics that the state uses to determine how are we doing. And so how many of our students are meeting standard, which is a 3 and 4. And that's published. So I think we can do a better job. And the last question is about school health metrics. And so there's a number of things looking at a school's health. And one of those is academic. And then the other one is like social emotionally and how are things going. So you've identified a few things that you appreciate. And I'm glad you said something about the math. The changes that, although you haven't seen it specifically, you've heard about it. And we have 2 board directors who were there in a 6th grade class today, seeing it firsthand. And then we had 2 board members who attended a couple weeks
2
ago
weeks ago.
for 7th grade.
Yeah.
And I think that you will see your teacher now. I don't know if it's going to be an algebra because the way this works, it's called a lesson study. Is you need really 2 of the same types of classes, not back to back, because there's a lesson and there's some changes to the lesson for the next lesson. So, and there's only 1 algebra class, I believe. Right?
Yeah.
And it's something that we're trying to put in place starting in elementary school so that everyone's used to it, that as they get through there. And then now that we're teaching it in the middle school, we're going to start doing it in high school too. So you're going to start seeing a lot more of that, like stand up and random order piece, no front of the classroom, everybody get to a whiteboard and kind of solve problems. And
I actually do have a follow-up question. So like you mentioned, like, hey, you're pretty self-driven of like,
Yeah.
you want to see the growth. When you talk to your peers, like, do you feel like the majority of them, all of them, less than half of them, like really put their all effort into that test, or do they kind of go, eh?
Okay. My friends are kind of more like me, like they all have that driven. I think also just genuinely in my grade, even the kids who I know, there definitely are a few kids who don't really care about it, but our classrooms are always silent. Everybody's always working. Like I don't think, yes, there are kids who kind of idle there, but I feel like, especially since I've gone into middle school, kids are focusing more on it. I don't know if, because it's kind of hard to pay attention to others when you're doing your test,
Yeah.
but like the kids who I know, their tests don't always reflect like their classwork.
Yeah.
Like they don't always pay attention in class, but their tests are good because I don't know, just having that where it's like it's kind of like you have to do it. Like, there's no getting around it. It kind of, I feel like more people put their effort into it. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Enjoy the concert.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
they had a twins fun.
I will. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to enrollment projection and bargaining update.
Yes. So I hold that presentation. Let's see. Yeah, so you have access to this. It's a Google slide. And so kind of hard to read, but this slide should look familiar as it's really just looking at our enrollment changes the last several years. And so what I've added is the 26-27 school year. What we projected is about a 3% reduction from our current enrollment to next year. And the strategy that we've used the last 2 years, we've looked at our enrollment and forecasted very conservatively. We've had a few more students. What that has allowed us to do is when we budget that way, then there's a few more students, then that helps our overall financial health and our fund balance. So using a similar strategy, But I have a few more data points I'm gonna share with you on additional slides because we have the demographic study. So I'm gonna look at those numbers, but right now we're thinking that we're gonna be somewhere around 2,400 students. And so again, a conservative enrollment projection.
Yeah.
So we're budgeting conservatively. What in the next slide, some of the data that we're looking at does not include the most recent changes with TK. So that's something that we're working through right now.
And Aaron, if I can ask a question.
Yeah.
Where did those 36 students go? Do you know?
The 36 students.
Yeah, in February, right? So we saw a drop in February, which is, I mean, it's pretty common that we see that. Usually people know, oh, they transferred to Mount Pleasant with the campus or like.
So February 25, so did they graduate?
Yes, well, so
Six?
there's a variety of places where they could have gone.
Yeah.
And in most cases, we do know if they transferred, but I'm trying to see, you're talking about the 37.66
Yeah,
down from February of 2025. So
Okay.
yeah, so enrollment on this particular slide, as we keep going back to a year ago,
Mhm.
what was our
sorry, I read that.
yeah,
It's
so
26,
so what was our enrollment? Because when we say our enrollment is higher than we thought, we continue to want to say, and it's lower than it was last year.
Yeah.
It's not to the point, and where we want to get to is that it's flat. Well, where we want to get to is it's increasing. It's just the challenges with declining enrollment is the adjustments we continue to make.
Yeah.
And if it's flat, at least we're going to see fewer of those adjustments to our staff.
Yeah.
Lots of other factors involved. So, so back to where we think we're going to be, and you see continually this trend that we're seeing, and we're hoping, right, that it'll be higher than where we're budgeting, and we're working on that right now. And we'll see a couple of the slides in the future pointing out how we're doing that. This one is a lot of numbers. This is our current elementary schools and how many each one of those rows. So for example, you see the first one is CRG and the one is first grade. So we have 3 sections of first grade. And so this is every one of our schools. And because we've talked about our current enrollment, we've talked about elementary specifically, where we have some large classes and the challenges with those large classes. And so this is, I would just want to show and put some perspective to and some context to. So is this across the board, that example? Like, do we have a couple? Yes, we do. We have a couple in each school. So CRG, it's at second grade where we have these large second grade classes. And we're going to be making an adjustment next year, recognizing those 2 large classes, which means adding a third second grade. And so we'll see, then we'll have smaller sections, and depending on how many students return, how many students are added, like that's all yet to be determined. But right now we're considering and our initial planning is to add a section there. We go to Hathaway, we see 3rd grade and 4th grade. We have these large, so the pink reddish is over what we consider like the contract language, and yellow is right at the contract. Excuse me, green is right at, no wait, green is below. Green is below the contract language, and then yellow is right at the contract language. Clearly red is over. So you see Hathaway, we have 2 sections that are over. Then you get to Cape, we see 2 sections to 4th grades. 2 sections of 4th grade that we are planning next year, as those are 5th graders, to add a 5th grade. Go ahead.
And with Hathaway, just so that I'm clear, we've got one class of 28 and one of 21, and that's because of the dual language?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so we can't.
More
even
than likely, yes,
outdo
thank you.
those two
More than
classes.
likely, that's because we have a dual language. And,
You can't balance.
you know,
Yep.
as we look at dual language, right now, we're asking for families to let us know if they are interested in having their student be in kindergarten, which we're gonna add a kindergarten. We also, we're actually adding a 5th grade because we have a 4th grade now, they'll be 5th graders. We're adding a kindergarten. And to your question, and the point I want to make is that we, you know, if they're new to us, they moved in, and they are interested in dual language and Spanish is their primary language, there's
Yeah.
more than likely, we're gonna make that happen.
Yeah.
Depending on the size of the class, but like there's a little bit of room there.
Yeah.
And we can have those in overload, but we try not to do that. And in first grade, maybe a student who's like, we want to add a first grader that's interested. But past that, more than likely, we're not going to unless this is their Spanish is their primary language.
So is the one that's over, is that the dual language class or is that the?
No, I don't believe so.
Traditional class? We just are limited because there's no other.
Yes,
fourth
and
grade
yes,
class
so
to be able to move.
right. And one of the challenges when you have
Mhm.
a single section and there's really no flexibility.
Yeah,
So that's why we prefer to have 2 or 3 sections, and in some cases 4. I think we talked a little bit about the benefit to having multiple sections and what you can do with grouping. And sometimes there's some personality conflicts, so there's some flexibility with that. Mainly, it's the grouping that we can do, and those teachers collaborating together.
Yeah.
And then you see Cape. It mentioned we have the 2, and then Gauze we have the 1, which is 3rd grade. And so
It's a whole bowl. I mean, they're all
Mhm.
3rd and 4th grade. You
they
kind
are,
of see
yeah,
the
yeah.
chunk of
Other than the 2nd grade, it's CRG. And we have some, and then you'll see we have some really small numbers, right? And so those are all the green. So depending on what we're looking at as far as what is that number that our goal number, and you see some clearly some variation. I feel good about that, like the kinder numbers for the most part are very low. And then the ones that we have that are, in the red that are over, we're going to make some adjustments to those. We also have contract language that where teachers that are in overload can have additional staff hours to pair it in there, in that classroom helping.
So I'm just looking at the Gauze 3rd grade, there's only 1. The Hathaway 3rd grade, there's only 1. Is there an opportunity to query parents since those schools are closed to say, hey, would you be
Yeah.
interested in shifting? Maybe we'd add a few blocks, but I don't know, like as a parent, I would like that opportunity to put my child in a smaller classroom and have a better experience.
Yeah.
Especially next year, right?
Yeah.
Because it's what the problems should be there next
Right.
year.
Yeah, really, a great suggestion and something that we'll add to our planning. So as we get closer to June and we're working through this, and then when we get into August and like officially the numbers, and when we know, it gets to this point where we feel like we have, like, these are gonna be the students,
Mhm.
and then we're putting them into different sections like that. What you just gave an example certainly could be something we do. We also look at boundary requests in district, and that's where we look and see, and it isn't just black and white on it's a yes or a no. We look at, like, do they have siblings? How long have the siblings been in that school? Like, we don't want to, definitely, if they have a sibling and we say no to one, but yet the other ones, it's okay.
Yeah.
But it's based on the numbers, like that isn't really fair to that family. So we do look at those families that are choosing into a different building. And then what you just suggested, I think, is something we could do it, especially when the 2 schools aren't very far apart.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just noticing that Hathaway has 3 4th grades.
Well, it's a 4.5. Is that one of the blended?
Yeah, so it's a blended, sorry, it's a blended. It's hard to represent that and be able to sort in a spreadsheet, so it's a 0.5.
Okay, pick that out. Sorry.
Yeah. I think not a bad way to represent
I
the,
like it.
I didn't do this with the middle schools and certainly the high school, that just didn't, wouldn't be beneficial, but where we're looking at elementary and when we've had these conversations about some of those classes where they're in overload, I do think that we can next year make some adjustments and hopefully mitigate that. So this document is looking at now, so that was, what we just looked at was like current February
Right.
class size, and that changes frequently, but so that's as updated as I had it. So this is looking at what's happening with our enrollment the next 10 years. So looking at the demographic study, I took our current enrollment and then used that metric, what they said, well, we think that in the elementary, it's gonna decline about 1.2%, middle school about 1.6%, high school 2.4%. So this is not what Shalice was using as the 3%.
Gotcha.
This is me just based off the demographic study, and wanting to show you like the next 10 years, we're continuing to see this decline. And so what we're doing right now is we're talking about, so how do we want to deal with this? It's why one of the reasons why the row is meeting
Yeah.
regularly is to look at our declining enrollment. What kind of changes do we want to make? The reasons we're doing this is because it's really impactful for a system. It's impactful for programs. It's impactful for staffing that we invest in to continue to make these adjustments. From year to year. I feel fortunate that we haven't had to make any adjustments during the year. Matter of fact, when we
Planning.
and we're trying to make adjustments when we need to in September, like right at the beginning of school, and not wait until students have gotten settled to make those adjustments. So this is just, again, sometimes people look at these numbers and they question these numbers because these aren't perfectly aligned to the demographic study, because I took our current enrollments with the demographic study did not have like the most updated enrollment when I did this. So I mean, we'd already received that, so it doesn't match that perfectly. And then it doesn't include the TK impact, which we're still trying to figure out. Are we gonna have one less TK, two less TKs? We don't know, because we don't know officially how they're gonna let us know how that will be decided. We know we have seen good interest in the survey results. We're excited about that. It's just we can't let families know yet, because we don't know yet. And one thing I don't want us to do is to cover out of our fund balance for TK. Because when we've done that in the past, not TK specifically, but when we've known a program was, the expenditures were outpacing the revenue, it's not healthy financially for us. So when we do that, it can't be a long-term fix, certainly. And when we have, right now, we can make sure that doesn't happen. And we've reached out to ECAP to see if there's going to be any licenses. So we are not just waiting to hear from OSBI, we're making adjustments. So there's possibly something for our families who qualify through ECAP.
Aaron, can you explain the elementary school declining by 1.2, and then middle school by 1.6, and high school by 2.1?
Yeah, so why is that? I think we look at, again, this was all based off of the demographic study and a number of things that were identified in there, but we have, as we're aware, we have fewer families having children, which, does that really explain that? Maybe not necessarily. When our students are making different decisions, and this is FTE, so they go to Running Start, we lose that FTE, other programs that they enroll in. So I think those are a couple reasons why that percentage isn't the same throughout. I don't know, Les, if you have any additional
The largest of all the classes are at the high school right now, and so that's the place where there's, like, as those
cohorts graduate.
they're not being replaced by cohorts as large. And so like the three biggest are grades 12, 11, and 10. And then the next biggest is, 9, 7, 6. And then grade 4 is bigger than grades 5.
Yeah.
But it is really a very, like, almost, progressive slope like that. But
Looks pretty linear.
Yeah,
So once those large cohorts graduate,
there's no replacement.
then
there's no
replacement, and then maybe we'll see that decline.
Then the slopes of the graph changes.
Yeah.
What are we roughly, I mean, 2033 is right around the corner. I'm just gonna round. Almost
2215.
almost 300 fewer students.
Yeah.
What does that translate into roughly in dollars for us?
freedom.
So pretty significant number.
Yes,
So we got 6 years to get in front of it.
right. And why we are right now meeting on a regular basis and determining. And we're seeing this happening
Everywhere.
literally all around us across the river. And the discussions they're having about how do we adjust to this declining enrollment.
I mean,
And so,
Portland Public Schools, they said the same thing. They're like, hey, due to declining enrollment, we're looking at 5 to 10 school.
Wilsonville, West Lynn,
Everybody's
closing
saying-
3 schools.
Yeah,
Portland, Evergreen, Vancouver, laying off hundreds of staff. So yeah, very challenging times adjusting to this.
we've always said we don't have to be a big school, but we can be a great school.
Right, yes. Yep. Okay, so that was enrollment, and we'll continue to update the board on enrollment as we learn more, and as well as like impact of legislative updates with our programs. So now we're gonna move to bargaining. And so we are bargaining with our teachers. That's the WAE, the Washington Association of Educators. So it's already started. There's been one meeting, which that meeting was to establish kind of our norms or our practices and just some kind of the rules. And then the next meeting is Thursday. And they've already identified 7 sessions that are gonna happen. They happen in this building. The teams typically have been already decided. We have a smaller team, they have a smaller team. The bargaining will happen during the day. And so we typically don't give you a lot of details as we go through this. We've already kind of established, kind of what's the target. So I have confidence in our team. We've worked, I think, really hard with developing a strong relationship with our labor partners. And so we know them well, they know us. I feel good going into this bargain. And so we will update you when we can. We are also working with our principals on compensation, and then our coaches and activities on compensation. So just the whole contract's not up, it's just compensation. So we'll be meeting with them later in the spring to determine next year's compensation. And then just as kind of a reminder, the term that we use that represents the inflationary adjustment that the state provides is the IPD, implicit price deflated. And so I've got some, what it was in 25-26, what it is going to be for 26-27. And if you want to know what it has been, I can provide that. So that is a starting point for us. We also receive regionalization, which is 6%, which is 4%, which is helpful in adding to that in essence what the state's providing as far as that adjustment. So because of where we live, that's not some school districts don't get anything, other districts get more than that. So just depending on across the state, and if you want more information about that, we can provide that. So I guess I take it back. I do have the IPD up there for historical perspective. Okay. So bargaining with all but our PSE, our classified staff. So they agreed to 3-year deal last year. Questions, wonders? Nope. Okay. Thank you.
All right, and then we move on to the AI discussion.
Yeah, so Les is going to join us up front. So we've heard from our students. Les has some details on our student rep involvement, how the staff has been involved. We have a survey that our students took, so he's going to share with you some information. And then you have in front of you, front back, a document that is on one side is the student code of conduct, which he'll go over. In the back is a draft of a form. And so he will get into that. Les.
I'm Les Brown, the Executive Director of Communications, Technology, and Operations. And today we're talking about AI, or artificial intelligence. Something that's come up multiple times at the board meetings. We know that there's a lot of kind of interest out among the school staff, as well as our parents and families, asking for a little more information, and maybe kind of starting to develop a set of guidance for both teachers and students around how we want to see this used in classrooms and how we want to be teaching it. This fall, we started a process working with our student board reps because this was something that they were interested in. We met with Mr. Castle, the principal at the high school, as well as the student reps at that building, and talked through kind of the WSD model for this, which is the back of the document that you have. They looked really extensively at this. We took a ton of notes and they had some more questions about it, but largely we left the document alone. There were a couple things that we wordsmithed to kind of make it match what we thought would be useful or make it more useful for our students. And then the front of the document is meant to be kind of an easier to read, maybe a page that will go in student handbooks this fall. So one of the things that the students were really interested in as they kind of started this conversation was gathering some feedback from other students. They had a bunch of questions that they were really interested in having part of a student survey. So I worked with them and Mr. Castle to put that together. And we launched that survey in February. While we were doing that, we also, one of our student board reps met with our teachers and got some ideas from them around things that they would like to see happening kind of specifically to the advisory lessons that might be opportunities to teach kind of the responsible use and an ethical use of AI to students. I shared with you earlier today a little bit of that data, and then we'll go through a little bit of it here in this presentation as well. And then later on this spring, we'll work with you all to kind of finalize this code of conduct. We also have some teacher input that's weighed into that. The students are working with Mr. Castle at the high school on the advisory lessons. So those will start sometime later this spring. And then if all goes according to this roadmap, we'll add this to our student handbooks so that they can be ready kind of at the end of the year for next fall. So in the student survey, about 370-ish students took the survey. That represents a little more than 40% of all the high school students. So it's a pretty representative sample. They were spread across all 4 grades pretty nicely. So it definitely represents kind of the student population at WHS. When asked the question, how familiar are you with AI services? And I think there were a few more details in that warning. On average, the students rated themselves about a 3.5 on a 5-point scale, where 5 is extremely familiar. So it's definitely skewed towards like higher than average in terms of their level of familiarity. There definitely are students who don't see themselves as being familiar very much or hardly at all with AI. When we asked the students what types of AI they're using currently, we used a pretty big definition of AI and purposefully to use this also as an opportunity to remind our students that a lot of the tools that they're using have AI baked into them, even if it's not visible at the surface level. So things like voice assistants, so Siri or Alexa, generative AI, which might be things like ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude. We wanted them to have a pretty broad definition of those. Recommendation systems, so those are things that are built into streaming music tools like Pandora that make recommendations, as well as Netflix. There's some AI that's built into what it chooses to try to get you to watch next. 27% of our students talked about using AI chatbots. It didn't come up in those free-form comments about how frustrating that can be, so they must be having a better experience than I am in general. 20% of them have used it for images or art, and we know that that's a growing kind of part of the AI tool set. And then about 14% of them talked about using AI in relation to autonomous vehicles, which could be things like the adaptive cruise control, lane keeping, or self-driving. I thought it was also interesting that 12% of them report not having used any of those tools at all. So there is still a population of our high school students that say that they're not using any of these tools at all. When we ask students how often they use AI, it's split basically half and half between students who are using it rarely or never, and then those that are saying that they're using it somewhere between a few times a week to multiple times a day. The very vast majority of students fall into either the rarely or the few times a week. So 2/3 of the students are kind of maybe more casual users of AI tools. When we ask them how well prepared do they feel for using it effectively, efficiently, and responsibly, we get a bigger spread of how students kind of self-reported. A smaller chunk of them are saying that they feel like really well prepared to use AI tools. But also a much smaller chunk of them are saying that they're either unprepared or somewhat unprepared. So it's less than 20% are in that kind of a profile. And then a really large number of them just saying that maybe kind of middle of the road or neutral on that statement. Within the pre-form comments, and I shared all of those with the board, so you'll have an opportunity to kind of wade through those. We used an AI tool, which is Google Gemini, to do a survey analysis, and it does kind of like broad themes of the student data. The biggest themes that came up within the students when we asked them about things that we should pay attention to as we're rolling out kind of the code of conduct are concerns around the accuracy and reliability of the information that they get back whenever they ask an AI tool a question. A lot of concerns around making sure that we're being deliberate in teaching students to use AI as a tool and not a replacement for learning. There are a lot of free-form comments that when you dive into them, it's over and over again the concern that their peers are just like, dumping questions in there and then cutting and pasting answers, and they're not really using it in a wise way, and they're really undermining the learning process. There are definite, like a large number of students that identified some of the environmental concerns around the energy consumption and then the water consumption that comes with AI data centers. I think that was something like 40% of all the respondents had that as a theme. And then also some concerns around how or what tools teachers are using to do AI detection, and then what the practices are for that. I reached out to several of our teachers that are really astute with technology and shared a draft of this document with them and asked for their perspective. And really, they have very similar concerns to the students. So not in the same order, but the idea of having a consistent set of rules that teachers are clearly communicating. They like the level system. So this idea that teachers are establishing and kind of front loading how students might be offered the opportunity to use AI or not, depending on the assignment. Really focusing on how to teach and make sure that students are using AI responsibly. And then again, a number of concerns around how to tell if a student is using AI, and then also how to respond when that's happening. So having clear kind of rules in place for what we do when we believe a student is using AI. Our students, as part of the survey, also offered us some ideas about what they want those advisory lessons to be. The advisory at the high school, I think, is a 30-minute period that happens once a week. And it's time that's set aside to kind of work on some of these broader initiatives that's not pulling away time from our other instruction. Our students, about half of them talked about wanting to incorporate ideas about the negative side effects or some of the drawbacks for using AI. That includes the environmental concerns. 45% of them talked about or wanting or needing help around how to use it as an effective study tool. 44% of them talked about how to detect AI, with the idea that they're all wanting to be critical consumers of information and they want to know who's talking to them. Are these real people, or are these computer chatbots that are giving them directions? 33% of them talked about ways that AI might be a part of their future careers and wanting to know more about that. And then around 20% kind of cut to the chase and said, how do you get what you want from an AI prompt, which is really that core question of how do you talk to it so that you get responses
that any internet query.
Yeah, and it's a critical skill. I did find it really interesting that when you get right down to it, that's probably the most logical question is one of the lowest rated ones. It's like, how do I actually get what I want is pretty far down. So they're focused on some of these higher kind of further away from the nuts and bolts.
Well, crawl, walk around, right? So, still in that crawl phase with the.
Yeah, and they're more walking around or starting to do some of the other stuff. So in thinking about this as a part of our student handbook, and then also looking at examples from a couple other school districts like Quincy School District as well as Peninsula School District, we took the WSD model, which is a form. So it's a part of, or it would be a part of board policy 2023, and it would actually come after a procedure and get attached to it in our board series. We wanted to create something that's a little maybe easier to look at and easier to understand document that simplifies some of the wording that's used in the model policy, and then offers kind of an easy, like at a glance view of how teachers might introduce what the expectations are for students when they're offering an assignment. And so we broke it down into these 3 tiers that are aligned with the procedure around AI being recommended, AI being permitted, or AI being restricted. And we think that having a really simple framework like that, and maybe some sort of visual cue that teachers can put into things like a syllabus as they're communicating lessons, as well as potentially in Google Classroom or other tools, will help make sure that there's a clear set of expectations and eliminate some of that, like, oh, I thought this was allowed and that's why I did whatever I did. As they're,
If I can interrupt, I love the Quincy model because they just literally go red, yellow, green. Like, it's very clear.
yeah,
It's
and
stop, go, stop, use caution, right?
Right.
Like,
and the use caution, I think, is like it doesn't fit in the metaphor, and that's why I didn't go with a stoplight metaphor. But I got stuck on, like, I don't think the yellow is the same as
it's because yellow could go
yeah,
either way, right?
it's kind of bold. And I guess that maybe that does match.
We've all
how people
watched
like
Short
to go.
Circuit, right? Yellow.
Some people see yellow and they punch it.
Yellow needs to go fast.
Yeah, there you go. Sorry, friends. So, and along with that, also kind of sharing like a definition of AI and like how we want to see that start to get introduced in our classrooms, reminders around the safety rules that come with this, the need for students to be really, paying attention to the type of information that they're giving to an AI tool when they're asking questions. They need to be aware that they're providing it a set of information. If they're providing it by a bunch of their personal information, they don't know what's happening with that inside of the tool that they're giving it to. Also, kind of, on a nod toward both the teacher and the student ask, the idea that students need to be taught like what to look for, or, how to start to try to identify AI generated content, really paying attention to the potential bias, because we know that that's a problem. The risks of misinformation or hallucination that AI tools can experience, depending on the model and how it's trained. And then also those, like the overall cost of supporting AI tools and then the environmental impact of that. We do know that there are benefits to AI, or there can be benefits to AI. We want to make sure that we're sharing those along with some of the drawbacks or considerations that we want students to be paying attention to. And so hopefully this is kind of a good start at something that kind of lays out a framework where teachers and students do this together and use it helpful and really, literally be on the same page around, what's allowed and what's not. So that when we get to the point that we're, communicating with students and families about like an expectation violation, everybody's using the same terminology. So do you all have feedback or questions?
I was gonna ask if you're looking for feedback right now.
Yes.
I'll go. Unless you want to go first.
I got a bunch. Go ahead.
First off, I think this is an amazing start, and I really like the restricted, permitted, recommended. I think we've talked about as a board, like the ability of future generations to recognize what's AI generated and the bias. I think within that, though, I like that we put like, don't give it identifiable information. I think it would also be really wise to teach them, even the non-identifiable information they get, how the companies are going to be using that. Because if it's a free tool, it's going to be used. And by that, I mean like helping them to understand the way that companies will use this to market to them. I think is just something that's going to be critical because it is so personalized. And when you talk about bias, also making sure they understand that they can bias the machine. It's not just whatever tool you're using, right? It's going to be as you reinforce, like, oh, I love this answer because that leans more towards my worldview, that you're actually biasing your own chat GPT or Gemini, whichever it is. I think my question would be, and maybe my biggest concern is like, who's going to help teach them this? And I love our teachers, right? But they're not AI experts. So what are our thoughts on how, like, are we gonna bring in experts to teach the teachers in order to teach them? Is this gonna be, and we may not have the answers, but I want us thinking that of like, because I mean, writing an effective prompt is an art and it takes like a lot, and especially as a machine. Yeah, but also like, how do you fact check, right? Okay, I recognize that this is AI generated content. I think it might be biased. But now what's my next step and how do I get information that's not biased?
Tricks of the trade.
Exactly. And like, I don't know that our teachers are in the best position to do that.
Right.
And I think that might be something where we could hit up like known community members and maybe have them help with that are using this daily. I don't know. It's just how are we going to get everybody up to speed at the same time when the teachers are learning at the same time the students are, right? Because this is new to all of us.
Yeah. Within the set of advisory lessons, I think so the student board rep Marley is really interested in that, and I think has started a little bit of the work on taking what the survey kind of told us about what students are interested in and thinking about what that might look like in those, like, say, 20 to 25-minute chunks of a lesson that happened during advisory. I'm definitely interested in going to support her in doing that work. She's kind of invited us into that, and so we'll plan with Mr. Castle, like what that process looks like to help a student develop something like that. And then those will be like a framework that teachers can use to work from. And so it'll probably have like definitions, examples, and then kind of like, starter prompts for teachers to introduce the lesson. Like they're generally like a PowerPoint, slide deck that kind of walks through a set of activities that students might do within that 25-minute activity. I think down the road, and like we started this last fall with Jack Udick, who came and presented to the district leadership team, as well as like a couple of our teacher leaders in August. And spent some time talking to us about different AI models, and then also kind of showing the differences between like the different tools and why you might choose one tool for one kind of activity and a different tool for something else, and then also providing some kind of like little mini lab environments where people can create an account, play with the tool without like subscribing to it. And I think that as we work with Connor and the teaching and learning, we'll be trying to figure out what are the needs at our teacher level. When we plan things like that, we always include teachers in planning the sessions, and then within our like the breadth of all the teachers that we have, I think there definitely are going to be ones who have more reservations about using this, but there will be others who are like jumping ahead, and they will be very interested. And usually we tap them to help train their peers. And we'll pay them a little bit to develop content to then share out with the rest of the group.
Just as you shared that, thinking about what do we want to prioritize?
Mhm.
And we've been talking a lot about math, literacy and numeracy. So where does this fit into what we're trying to focus on? And we can't do everything, but we can. I think this is a really good start to guidance. And we share this with families that we are aware. We're working through it. And as the two of you sat through almost 2 periods where you didn't see one device, and we were just asking our students to collaborate. And we had structure and norms to how they collaborate. This is structure and norms to how they access AI, how they use AI. And it is important. And we really feel like, and I think Les was talking about a policy that was updated recently that looks outdated because it's changing so quickly. Right.
Yeah.
And just as we are, and I was much more excited about this a few months ago, and now realizing the concerns and just trying to be really thoughtful and intentional with our commitment to this, our investment in this. And you see across the country where school districts have invested in AI products that gone away. LA Unified. So like just some examples of like learn from their I think it's learn from their errors, what they've experienced, and being careful. Just as which I think we are. I think we're being very thoughtful, and what Les has described we are developing the plan. And so I appreciate our board is interested in seeing us move in this direction, but also be wary of the challenges that they're faced with them.
When you talk about the math on the first thing, because I agree with you, I think at some point we're gonna have to invest in some enterprise if AI keeps going, but I think it's way too early to do that. But even right now, like with that math of like being able to then hand it out and be like, hey, if you struggled a little bit today, here's the 3 problems, feed it to the free chat GPT and have it walk you through step by step where you put your thought process in. Like those are the simple things that don't cost anything that I think teaching students of like, if you're struggling, or if you want extra coaching in this area, here's how you can use a free tool. Granted, it has environmental impacts, and I acknowledge that, but a tool that doesn't cost you anything, that we don't have any inequity, and we can easily start giving them some, personalized one-on-one. And if you make it a project that keeps going, like.
And with a prompt, like with the right prompt, like you're gonna get there versus getting frustrated and
Yes,
struggling through like.
all of how to do it. And so that's kind of and then where my mind goes is then you can also have it like give it this prompt once a semester to hand to your teacher, so your teacher can see what you've been working on with it and or maybe additional support.
Yeah.
I know we're far out from that. I think this is a race.
I mean, I think what we're all saying is we're trying to create critical and creative thinkers.
Yes.
And AI is a tool of that, one of many tools. A lot of them are just collaborating with your peers, but it is also a collaboration tool, right? So
Yes.
And teaching them to share those prompts. I mean, that's at my workplace a big part of what we're actually recognizing folks of.
how did you get here?
Yeah, who has generated this? How have you thought about other use cases that you could do for it and share it out?
Right. I feel like one of our student board reps talked about using Notebook LM as a study tool.
Marley
right?
did, yeah.
Yes.
And the idea of, giving it the course syllabus and, like the ebooks of a set of materials that they were using in class, and then having it design, like a podcast or something like that, or like note cards or something else that they could use as a study, right? And there are, an ever increasing number of tools, but a lot of them can be used in really creative ways to differentiate learning. I know the board has talked a lot about like the ability to extend learning for our highly capable students and those who are kind of like ready to benefit, and take the next next steps. One of the really powerful, things that AI can do is take a lesson plan and like really thoughtful teachers put all the work into aligning it to the standards, but then to do the next steps of like if you have a student who's really advanced and maybe even in these areas, what are the logical extensions that come out of that? And then also how to build the scaffold so that students who are maybe a little bit behind grade level can then approach that lesson and then, be successful alongside their peers. So differentiating reading materials like in real time is a kind of an amazing thing that didn't exist 10 years ago.
Yes,
Okay.
to
All you.
Well, we talked about a lot of what I was going to talk about, but I can never take my editor-in-chief of the school newspaper out of my head. So I would love a preamble on this before the, student code of conduct with AI. I would love to be like, why are we even talking about it, right? Like, we are here to support you. We believe it's an important tool. You're going to see it in the workforce before we get into like,
So the why.
do this, don't do that.
Yep.
But like, I think I would start right from the top of this one and just like, why are we even talking about AI? It's because the teachers and the board and everybody believes that this is around and it's a tool and we're here to support you. Oh, by the way, when you're using it, then we get into, because we kind of jumped right into like, if you use it wrong, you're in trouble. And I'm like, that's not how that's not my first statement. I want this to be.
I love that.
Yep.
okay.
It was good.
I
I
guess my only thought, just like a question,
And the press.
the equity portion, because I feel like AI could be a tool where if you have money, you could
Yeah.
very quickly outpace your peers. And so if teachers are gonna have like a framework where you can use it, I guess I just question, like, are there gonna be boundaries on that? And what tools they could use so that, you know, one person is not at its gross like advantage or disadvantage. Anything else? Folks?
I wondered if you, any questions about, so we're putting this in essence in a current policy that talks about digital citizenship and media literacy. So it fits really well in 2023, that policy. And then it is a form that WAS has already recognized that this is a need. So we appreciate, I appreciate where it is. I just don't have any questions like why it's there.
Makes sense.
And then what you just said about like recognizing that and so being aware if it's something that's a part of a lesson or an assignment, a task. And because yes, some students are gonna be able to purchase the next level and some may not have Wi-Fi at home, be able to access it at all. So yeah, be considerate about that. Good feedback. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
This is not a decision, like we're not, there's no vote on this. We're just going through and we think that this is something that we can move forward with. And then at some point, attach it to that policy and procedure when we feel like it's ready. So like another reading, like the preamble makes a lot of sense. And any other adjustments that based on your feedback we can make.
Yeah, and I have a couple on the policy thing, but we'll get into that like as we go through right there. I think everything that we studied is in there, but
Thanks, Len.
Awesome.
I mean, I would say one before you leave, because there was a number of comments about like students worried that their work is being called AI and being plagiarized because the teacher's using AI to grade them. So like that, to me, that's just like a weird, and I don't have an answer in terms of like, how do you tell the students, like just my own work? I mean, there was an author recently who published a book and the whole internet is saying, oh, it was all plagiarized. And he's like, no, I wrote the thing. But he has no way to prove it right now.
Right.
But
So you do if you like did a Google Doc and could actually track the changes, but I mean, even then a smart kid could just copy a couple lines at a time versus.
right. So it's just both making sure that the students, because I'm here for the kids, right, is making sure that they're aware that like, hey, we're talking to the teachers too, right? So how they're interacting back to the kids. Like,
Right, I mean, you know, and like the student board reps were one of the reasons the very first question was the question that it was, student reps really wanted that data point around how many of our students have been, they felt unfairly accused of using an AI tool as cheating. And as it turns out, it's about 25%, which I guess it's quite a few if you figure that there are some that haven't used it at all. That's, a sizable number. I do think that like the version history and documents is a good way to demonstrate like, how you're creating it. I think right now, at least, a lot of the concern comes in the form of like research papers and essays, those types of things. I think in the revision process or the like asking students to submit, like the first draft, the second draft, the third draft. There are opportunities to, look at the writing and like, is it, consistent? Is it, changing in a way that makes sense? Or are they turning in something that's 100% different each time? Because if you played much with AI, it's hard to actually get it to give you something just slightly better. Like that's, like, no, really keep almost all of it, but just change this a little bit. Like, it's like, no, I've got ideas. Let me rewrite the whole thing for you. But so I think that those are strategies that we could definitely be teaching to our teachers around, especially those who are, in English language arts or like social studies where they're having students write essays. How do you determine with a little more validity? One of the things that was really emphasized in the training that we did in August is that none of the tools that advertise them as being able to detect AI work anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's gotten sophisticated enough that like whatever pattern recognition doesn't work. you know, although it's weird because like I feel like I read stuff all the time and I go like, oh, that's written by AI. Like I feel like I can hear it,
Mhm.
but I don't know what it is that I'm recognizing.
So there's that thing, like,
Depends how well you trained your bot.
then I go back to my middle schoolers going, hey, Daddy, I wrote this essay. Can you read it and give me some comments and some feedback on it? So I'm like, oh, well, you didn't a different
Mhm.
sentence here and you didn't justify that. And they put it, and it changes quite a bit right after going through the parent filter. But at the same time, you're teaching and educating. So
I
that
like
gives
The
you.
I like
editor, the editor in chief,
like-
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, being able to see that or produce that for each of yours, I think that's it, because that'll also help train them of like. It's really easy to just say, yes, I accept what the bot said versus like actually looking at it side by side. And running through like, how much did you change on me?
Right. Yeah, so lots of things.
Great work, Les.
Thanks, Les.
Let me know if I can help, I like this.
Great, do we have any citizen comments?
You know,
Okay, so I'll move right along to,
So.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah, so there's, there was a question about this is for gauze and Hathaway and what exactly are the DDC controls, what's that update? So we've done this in a number of our buildings. So one of the goals, we have numerous goals. One of them is that we have our buildings on the same system. And so these are the last two that are not on that system. The other buildings are. These two buildings have systems that are old. And when we are unable to use those systems, say they aren't functioning, then we aren't able to heat and cool those buildings. So, which is a concern of ours, that if that were to happen, you know, do we have the ability to heat them quickly or get them fixed so we can heat them? So that is a concern because they of their age, and can we continue to fix what's wrong with them? So but I also know that we're talking about through like the row and like what are we doing with our assets and with our buildings? So looking at this decision, and one of the wonders is, so this would be work that's happening this summer. And what if there's a decision that's, you know, that occurs later this spring? You know, is it possible to pause on a project? And I think the answer is yes, that can happen. And there'd be a number of reasons why. Like it could be the finances. We decide to pause because it's, you know, it's 600,000, maybe close to 650,000. And so could we pause on that? And the answer is yes, we can pause on that. It would just mean that we then would be, with those things I just mentioned, we're vulnerable to not having all of our buildings on the same system. And what if the building system fails? Well, that's anything else you want to add?
The current system does have a lot of issues with it. There are very few people left who support it now. It's become, you know, like it's 20-year-old software. We're really concerned about our ability to get like adequate support for it. I'm somewhat new to managing operations, but what I can tell you is when a building is too warm or too cold, people complain a lot. And it's not like, oh, in 6 weeks when the company can fix something, like it's like, I got like 3 minutes before people start freaking out, right? So we had an issue earlier this year at one of our schools where the heat wasn't on in the pool. You know, it was like 55 degrees, you know, in parts of the building, and had, you know, dozens of complaints within the first like 30 minutes, right? And every hour that it went where it wasn't resolved, like more and more people got really, really agitated about the fact that it was cold.
And watching the band,
You know, just on the code was not a good answer.
yeah, watching the band students moving through the hall, the frustration on all their faces. So yeah, those are things that can happen. And are we guarantee it's going to happen? No. I appreciate you adding some things I didn't mention. And there's also the other reasons, right? So we have legislation that we are going to be expected to meet with the Clean Buildings Act, and that's, so we know that that's coming. And our theory of action is with updated systems, we're gonna be able to manage the climate in those buildings, and we're gonna be able to, hit those numbers. They're gonna be expected. Now, those might change too. That might be something, there's several ifs in this scenario. So, I do believe that to the question, can we pause on one of them if we need to? And I think the answer is yes, we can. And then what Les just described is if we did that, then we're vulnerable to some things that could be out of our control.
And if I understand right, the dollars that we're talking about are from the 2023 levy, right?
Yeah, so that we were looking through that as we have there's contingencies built in to a number of the projects, and we believe that the dollars are in those contingencies. But as we're wrapping up, and the majority of our projects are wrapping up. And so that is our belief. And even if they were not, if it doesn't cover the entirety of the project, then we have additional funds in the next year. And so that would be another reason why we would pause on one of these, if the funds weren't available. Any other wonders about this particular decision?
I think what you said allays most of my concerns. I would just ask that when we get the actual contract, that we ensure that we can back out without any financial repercussions if we want to. That would be my one caveat on this that I'd ask for, or with minimal financial repercussion.
Yeah.
I love when they like to write in that.
Yeah. Sure. Okay.
So do we have a motion to approve?
I motion we approve this contract.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
I
Right, motion carries. Okay, moving on to our policies. Policy 1240 committees.
Yeah, were there any questions at the first reading? So this is the second reading. Any questions, concerns about that one?
No.
none.
Okay.
You approving these?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
I motion to approve 1240.
I second.
All in favor?
I
Aye. Carries. All right, policy 4110, citizen advisory committees, task forces.
Yes, so I want to identify an edit to this one. And so one change that I made is it's in the sentence, second sentence where it says the committee will study district school topics and submit their findings and recommendations to the superintendent. And what I had Corey strike out was and or board. And at the last board meeting, I mentioned this, that if it's and or, and the board is making a decision that the superintendent is not aware of, that makes
Follow
me,
the chain of
Yeah.
command.
it makes me nervous.
It goes
to
to you
do
and then
that,
it comes
yeah.
to us.
Yeah, and I did not know, I noticed it in the procedure. I didn't notice it in the policy. So I thought my preference would be to leave it that way.
I'm fine.
Okay. Thank you.
And I just wanted to mention the discussion about the procedure and the ability to kind of tweak that after the policy is passed.
Yeah, there's a little bit of, thank you. There's a little bit of language in the procedure. And so we can make that adjustment, and we would do that prior to posting the procedure. We can post the policy and not the procedure, but there's some revisions along the same line on appointing members to this committee.
So let's be on the policy or
Yeah.
procedures.
Yeah.
Got it.
All right, motion to approve.
Motion to approve 4110.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
I
Motion carries. All right, policy 5011.
Yes, sexual harassment and district staff prohibited. So district and staff prohibited. So we made several provisions based on laws to recommendations based on statute changes. Were there any questions?
No.
Okay.
All right, can I get a motion to approve?
motion to approve 5011.
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Aye, motion carries. Oh, smoked that.
Wow, you did a really nice job.
Well, they went pretty quick last week too.
I just want to say I really love the first and second reading. Like,
mhm.
I love having the ability to kind of discuss it, and so I just appreciate that
Thanks. Yeah,
adjustment.
a couple weeks to process it.
All right, comments. I'm gonna go this way. Starting with
So you're starting?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Whatever you want. All right, yeah, mine, I think the couple things, the first is baseball and softball season is underway, and I hear our new fields are great. So
Is that
looking,
right?
that's the rumor on the street. So looking forward to getting to see a game whenever this rain stops. And then today got the opportunity with Ida to go to JMS and witness, and what is it called? What do they call that?
A lesson study.
The lesson study, which effectively is teacher giving a lesson, but prior to the lesson, she's meeting with other teachers, both in the grades of that subject above and below, to talk through what the goal of the lesson is, how she's going to approach it. She gets a little bit of feedback, or he goes in and actually teaches it, and then those teachers are in there observing and provide additional feedback. And then she or he adjusts the next lesson, and then you get to see how that works. And just seeing how receptive the teacher that was doing the lesson was to the feedback makes it very clear that that's a culture of trust up there, because it can be nerve-wracking to do your job in front of others that do your job as well. But also the approach of having teachers that teach the next level up, being able to give feedback about how this would tie in, I think is really, really beneficial to the kids. And then seeing how really slight tweaks that other teachers made for, or suggested she do, had a significant impact on the next lesson. And so I would like to see more of that, not necessarily me going and seeing, but I just think whatever we can do
Yeah.
to enable those teachers to
Yep.
continue that, I think it creates a really good culture, and I also think it makes them better teachers.
Yeah.
You know, from getting that constant feedback.
Thank
So
you.
appreciate the invite from Mr. Cook and the adjustment due to scheduling conflicts.
Yes, that was awesome.
It was good to see.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jane. I too love that it's baseball and stuff. I was wearing my East County hat just for that, because the field's right over here. It's been nice to seeing all the kids out there on it. Obviously, club ball, and we were at Gauze for the resource optimization meeting last week, but the fields were full. There was kids everywhere, and parents and visiting teams, and we're actually playing on our fields, which was pretty sweet. So good. I can't say enough about the lesson study. I made the one 2 weeks prior, so it's just a really good environment where you're watching the collaboration. We talk a lot about our teachers being able to like get outside of their classroom, and we provide time for them every Wednesday, but this is just even more time that they're working together in a multi-grade discipline, and we're trying to create like a platform where that goes from, when I said it to the student rep Sonia, where it starts, we can do this in grade school and then in middle school. It'll all transition into high school, because the kids are going to be used to doing it. They're like, why am I sitting at their desk? Aren't I supposed to be up on the wall? And don't I get a different person to work with today? And can I go see what they were doing over there? I mean, it was pretty neat how interactive it was. So I think that was really good. The other thing on my mind is that we did our site visit at Jump to Guard and CRDE last week, which was really good to kind of just go through and see all that. And I had not seen a lot of our resource rooms, right? So seeing how the staff are working with those students is pretty incredible at both of those facilities. And really, Craig was there.
I felt strongly that it was really impressive. I thought the campus, I hadn't been out there except to go for basketball games. So I came in a different direction. It's an impressive campus. Classrooms were impressive. The tour was fantastic.
Well, I'll keep going. I'll turn it over to you now.
And today was my granddaughter, the 4-year-old's first day of T-ball. And so I wasn't thinking baseball at all today. And so it's pretty cool. She's has 2 older brothers, and she's been outpacing them. She's been so excited to be at this point. But to bring it back to the schools, I went on the tour, and I was very impressed with what I saw and the instruction. I'm not surprised to hear you when you talk about how they're working together to bring each other up. Yeah, really like that. Our successes and in that, for our goals, what we're looking for is in that kind of collaboration. So I'm excited to hear that. And what I saw in the classrooms was very impressive. So thank you.
You like the dance they did.
Do we get a demo?
They had me at the
I don't know if I can pull off anything, but I can't remember.
Yeah, they might have had me at the dance. I don't know.
But they do that. It's just teamwork and collaboration. Like,
Yes.
the new one for the work. Because Sadie has been volunteering in that classroom. She's like, what's your latest dance you're doing? So all the kids, like, they stopped what they were doing and they all got in line and they're ready.
And Miss Howard, yeah,
Oh.
Miss Howard, I think there was a jump there.
There was a jump.
That's why
I was wondering about the classroom below them because they all fell in line at the same time.
Well, I've really noticed, I taught in an environment where we would receive comments from people about how our students would be able to talk to adults, how they make eye contact, how it really drew them out. And I saw that all in the classroom. And when we walked in, students making eye contact, you could tell that they were ready to engage. They wanted to engage. And I thought that was it. So the dance, yeah, I'm not surprised they were group dancing.
Do we need a board group dance?
Absolutely.
You
choreography.
You need that, Ida.
I can't even do the Macarena very well, so I'm just gonna let you know.
Right, well, I just had one, I guess, share. So my husband heard about this play going on at the high school with the Columbia Theater Arts Foundation. The director is our Mr. Gregerson, which is amazing. And he heard about it on OPB actually, so they did a spot on it and we got tickets. It was the best musical I think I've seen. It beat some of the things we've seen downtown Portland. So it was so good. It's playing again this weekend if folks want to go. There's a lot of former students in there. It was amazing. So I just wanted to highlight a lot of, one of our teachers is engaged, some of our former students are engaged, and it was just such a high quality performance. It blew us away.
Right. Where do we go to get tickets?
I think you can get it online.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's guys and dolls, sorry. So not very academic, but here's my love.
Thank you.
Aaron.
Okay, a couple slides. So this one should look familiar. Just a reminder that we have on our website, and I think we've shared it on Facebook, that we have some links to some forms for families who are interested in enrolling their students. And so we have a TK, we're looking for dual language, and then kindergarten registration. So those are all three, as well as any new students are welcome to join us. We had and Ida joined the audit meeting, and so that was our earlier. Was that this week or was that last week?
That was this week.
It was Monday, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Wow. So it was yesterday. It seems like it was a few days ago. So really good news. Internal controls over major programs. So unmodified opinion issued. So that's a good thing. So that is the best you can have. So we felt good about that. No findings, no significant deficiencies, or material weaknesses. So that's all very good. And they were very positive about the experience. The next audit in 2027 will be for 25-26. Similar process. It's a full audit, so it's a larger audit. And so feel good about the results. They said in their communication and on the Zoom call how much they appreciated Shalise and her availability, how quickly she got them information. So she clearly understands how important this is. And when they ask for something, we get it to them. We get to them quickly. And that helps with their efficiency. So we got to meet, I think, most of the team. Thanks for being a part of that. I appreciate that you were there as well as Sadie. So that happens every time. At the conclusion of an audit is we meet with their team and they give us an update as well as share lots of information with us. So, yeah, so that's really good news. So we're high school knowledgeable. So we know that we have a middle school knowledgeable team that set the record for the number of students participating. That season's continuing. The high school attended state last week. So that is Dale Croswell, who was our coach, who is a Washougal graduate and who is a teacher at Camas, lives in Washougal. I'm so thankful that he is participating with us in a number of ways. This is one of them. I think our success is because of his passion for knowledgeable. He's also one of our track coaches. So appreciate his involvement. There's our team. They did the best we've done, which is 7th place. He provided this information. He listed Columbia River, I think for a reason that's on there and what they placed, and then we got a little bit higher than they did. And then Ridgefield, one of his points was in our region, the teams were very successful at all the levels. So it says a lot for our region and stressing our involvement in this, and just very successful. So appreciate our students and staff who made that happen, unless you're involved in it, right, as a judge. And I think earlier this year, weren't you like sparring with a knowledgeable team?
Yes. Oh, I bet last
That might not be the best term, but I think
Yeah.
you practice with that knowledge. Yeah, no, yes.
There were no clouds on.
No. Okay, so two things. On the right, the special guest. So this was last week up at Cape. This is 2nd grade. So that is Austin Walsh. So Officer Walsh is a Washougal graduate, and that's his son, who's a 2nd grader. And I happen to have had the opportunity to work with Austin when he was in high school, and I was a principal of high school. And so when I go to that 2nd grade, because I'm a reading buddy, and I grab my student, I pull my student out. Austin's son always says, "Hey, my dad says he knows you." I said, "Yeah, we know each other." So he reminds me of that. And then I found out that Austin was speaking to both 2nd grades. So Ms. Stauffer brought her class in to Ms. Daniel's room. And so just to listen to Austin talk about being in law enforcement and saying, "I always really wanted to be an officer. I'm doing what I wanted to do when I was growing up." So we talked about that. He talked about what he does as an officer and why he enjoys it. And so and all the students, I think every one of them had a question, and some of them had multiple questions. And Ms. Daniel did a really good job of making sure that everybody got to share one question. A few students, I think, just couldn't help themselves. But as I mentioned, it was as a former principal and having worked with Austin, it was like one of those moments where I was really proud of him and his success. And then seeing his son sitting there watching his dad talk about what he does, like it was just so special. Yeah. And so I want to make sure I share that with you. And then as you described the lesson study, such a good job of describing the lesson study and what it's about. And it is not something that we've done, like put like a structure to it and budgeted for it. And I think we're going to, like, now this is my 2nd one, and seeing, and Mr. Cook has talked a lot over the years about the importance of this, and he's done it informally in his building multiple times. But I think this is something we're going to hang on to, and we want to see it at all the levels, Paul, as you mentioned. Yeah. And we saw in Sam Howard's, we saw her 4th grade students heading right into this when we visited last week. They were right. Doing exactly the vertical whiteboards.
You saw that.
And we saw that, and so to have middle school teachers there from both middle schools. And then the next lesson study, we're going to bring in the high school. Mm-hmm. And then if we can incorporate the elementary, it is, and again, it doesn't involve any technology, but it does involve is structure to collaboration and then math. And students being able to think out loud with structure in place. And then, like you said, random, and what Sonia mentioned, like random groups every time. And we saw Sam Howard, she had technology that she went through multiple, I think 3 times, this is who you're going to be with. This is who you're going to be with. Yeah. So, and then we heard from a student, they appreciate that. Yeah. They actually think that takes some pressure off.
Well, it builds teamwork too. You get to instead of just grab your buddy and do your math.
Yeah.
No, every day you're with someone different.
Yep. And Jane, what you mentioned about Erin Darling and her ability to be reflective.
Yeah.
And all she wanted, she didn't really want to hear what was going well. She wanted to hear the suggestions. I want to hear more suggestions. And she just wants to be better at what she's doing. And it was really, that was a really special opportunity to see that. And then we had a resource teacher there, and the other, and then see David and Jake working so well together as principals.
So are we going to evaluate how effective this is? Like, I mean, sounds great, but the rubber has to hit the road.
It absolutely does. Yep, yep. And so, a number of ways that we can do that is the assessments. And now those three jump to guard teachers are using the same curriculum as through the same publisher, but those are all three different grade levels. So like, looking at assessment results is one way. And I think, we could also like, do we see results in our Smarter Balance, which that we're rapidly approaching the assessment window when they're gonna be taking the Smarter Balance. This is one part of 1 year.
Yeah.
Associated with a book study. So,
Because they haven't done this for that long. have they?
No, this
Just
is
like
actually-
2 months.
yeah, this is the second lesson study.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, do we have goals? Like, because it takes resources. So I guess I'm like, how long do we think it's gonna be?
Right.
And like, at what point do we say, yeah, it worked or not? Like, I guess, I don't know.
yeah, so I think we enter into it in conversation with the leadership team with the principals to see who's interested. And we already know that K-5, they're working through right now, like they have a new curriculum. And so we want to have training for them in August and potentially in June, just depends on who's available. Because we want to keep working on that investment.
Into the impact.
So they understand that curriculum that we just recently, adopted. So there's a number of things that we're doing. But to your point, I think talking with David more about like what could that look like, and maybe it stays, put at the middle school initially, and then we look and see what the challenges with this is. We're bringing in subs, so we got to look at the impact of the cost of substitutes, and then when you have someone who's not the teacher, there's a potential impact there. So I think putting a scope to it, what you're describing, how long do we do this, how often does it happen? Right now, early interest is high because of the experiences that they're having. And again, the vertical teaming, and what we even heard in that discussion is the 7th grade teacher saying to the 6th grade teacher and the 8th grade teacher listening to how are they being taught this particular standard, this particular skill.
Well, there could be a benefit outside of the academics, right? Just for team building, but that's a separate enterprise than using this as the math model.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So.
And hard to even determine the impact of.
And then scaling
Yeah.
that broadly before you really
Yeah.
know if it
Exactly.
works
Yeah.
is kind of a concern of mine.
Absolutely.
I think the thought had been though, like, we know that we want to increase our scores. So we
Right.
can either keep doing what we were doing. Try this, right? And it's, the lesson studies don't happen very often. I mean, they're teaching these classes this way every day. It's every so often, then get the teachers together. It's how can we jump it one more? That's the lesson study part of it. So.
Well, I guess.
I don't want to put words in Mr. Cook's mouth, but he did say, it's like, we know we have to try something, right? And so this is the best idea we have right now. So like, we're gonna go with it, and it might actually take a couple of years before you see
Right.
changes on the assessment levels.
Because what happens is most of those individuals have taught math for several years. They have their way. Even Mrs. Vaughn was talking about, just like you could see, just like wrestling with the idea of making some changes. First is like physically looking at your building, your classroom. Like, can I set my room up this way? Which we've seen now multiple examples where it can be done. But you need some equipment, you need the materials to make it happen. And this is aligned to the book that the both schools are doing a book study on, and both math departments are doing this book study. Okay, so I mentioned baseball. So just on the left are some pictures. So we are really excited about the game because Paul, as you described, after our row meeting, I zipped over to the game, caught the last, I think, inning and a half out that we won, beat Prairie. It's like 18-5. So scored lots of runs. I heard that there were long innings. And so on the left, you see pictures of people and the game. The bottom right is the game. It's over. They're celebrating. And so really exciting to see. Again, last year we did play a game. First game, home game. Lots of people there. Lots of excitement. Scoreboard worked. Got a win. They were on the field. And then since we're talking about that campus, I want to mention one of the challenges we're having is that there are people that access that space and they have dogs. And they are, so this is just encouraging people who do access the space, not during school hours, but before and after and on the weekends to clean after their pets. And so we're going to continue to encourage people to do that because it's no good. Now we have goose droppings out there, which that's really hard to clean up after the geese, but the dogs, it's a different story. Yeah. So just as a reminder there. And then this is a reminder, same picture on the left, but we have signage and we're encouraging people. And we've been very intentional. When we've gone over there and we see somebody and we politely ask them during school hours to not be there. And those conversations have gone very well. And we're really encouraging all staff members to have those conversations. Now this sign, you may have noticed that actually is a Hathaway. So I'm not trying to be misleading, but we have the same kind of signs. And we're actually going to be adding more signs to the campus. And we're going to be adding more fencing because we just really feel like it's too exposed, too open. So we're adding some fencing, so investing in some fencing in the next few weeks. So there should be some improvements. We have Z gates, don't have Z entrances, don't have gates. So we're gonna add gates. Those will be locked during the school day, unlocked before and after. So
it is publicly funded property, but you just can't be there during the school.
yeah, it's a school, right?
Yeah.
And so just
Can't
like
be there
people
during
just
school
freely
hours.
moving around. And the challenge has been when people let their dogs off
Leash.
their leash and we have a class like our forestry class, the access is that stand of furs there. I don't know if you noticed they have ribbons around them. I thought the same thing. You may have if you saw those, like,
Are they cutting them?
are we dropping those down and everything else? But no, they were practicing. Like they were just marking them, right? And that's what you do. So, but when there's dogs running around off leash, that's a bad situation. So we want to avoid that. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
I would. One more thing I forgot to say, because I was gonna say it to our student rep, because she's an eighth grader. All of our eighth graders were invited to the high school on the 2nd of April.
Which is conference, it's a conference day, early release.
But that
Yeah.
night, they're being invited to the high school for freshman orientation.
Yes. Which is new to do that during conference week.
Yeah, so they get to go and
Yeah.
they get like a half-hour instruction to get to tour the school.
Yeah.
And they get to talk to different clubs and athletic stuff, so.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
Thanks to the high school staff for putting that together. You'll be
But it's
there.
good, yeah.
Yeah, good.
You have any citizens?
No.
Future agenda items?
That's the day I think. About it.
Okay.
I was wondering if we could get I don't need a presentation, just like I know in the whatever consent agenda, there's like the contracts and like some of the capital contracts, but could we get kind of like where things landed, like for the different
Yeah,
like,
the projects.
yeah, what was
Yeah.
the final budget amount? And then like,
Yep, yeah, we can
Kind of-
provide it, yes.
Cause there was the 4 closed, the 4 that were had closed,
Yeah.
finished, right? But it
Yeah.
just wasn't the final.
You got it.
and I don't know, maybe it's not the right time, but
I think it is.
okay.
The ones that are done and wrapped up,
And then,
absolutely.
like, just looking at that remainder and then we could have that
Yes,
one that we're
Yep.
voted on.
we can do that. Thank you.
Anything else?
Were you also wanting to?
Oh, yeah, update on the row committees. It would be nice to bring that back to the board. Because we're not all participating in all of them, just to see where we're at.
Yeah, so
And
our
just
next, that could be a future, that could be. a
whenever
update.
it's
Yeah, I
appropriate.
think the next meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
James and one of them out there.
Yeah, and I just,
Even if it's one, just updating on one and maybe even the next if we're not ready for the other ones.
Yeah,
Starting to
absolutely.
see
Yes,
those in.
yes, for sure.
we can
Mhm.
course correct if we feel like we have concerns.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Right, oh, I'll gavel.
Nice.